Good morning, students. In this session today, we are going to see History Unit 3, The Age of Empires, Guptas and Vardhanas. Students, listen carefully. Make a note of each and every important points in your social classwork note. If you have any doubt, make a note of it. The doubts will be clarified on the reopening day. Gupta dynasty. In this lesson today we are going to discuss about the Gupta dynasty and the empire building efforts of Gupta rulers and also the polity, economy and society under Guptas. The art and architecture, literature, education, science and technology about the Gupta dynasty. Students, by the end of 3rd century, the powerful empires established by the Kushanas in the north and Satavahanas in the south had lost their greatness and strength. After the declines of Kushanas and Satavahanas, Chandragupta carved out a kingdom and established his dynasty. Students, nearly 50 years Harsha of Vardhana dynasty ruled North India from 606 to 647 AD. Now let's see the sources. Sources can be classified into two types. One is literary sources and the other one is archaeological sources. Now let's see the archaeological sources of Gupta dynasty. See, the gold, silver and copper coins issued by Gupta rulers. Allahabad pillar inscription of Samudragupta, the Megharauli iron pillar inscription, Udayagiri cave inscription, Madura stone inscription and Sanchi stone inscription of Chandragupta II. And Bitari pillar inscription of Skandagupta, the Gauda stone inscription, Madun copper plate inscription, Nalanda inscription on clay seal. These are the archaeological sources in Gupta dynasty. Now let's see the literary sources of Gupta dynasty. Students, Vishnu, Matsya, Vayu and Bhagavata Puranas are the Niti Satras of Narada. Vishagadatta, Deva Chandraguptam and Mudrashaksha and Banas Harsha Charita, dramas of Kalidasa. These are the literary sources of Gupta dynasty. And also the account of Chinese Buddhist monk Fahin who visited India during the reign of Chandragupta II. Students, it will come under the 1 mark question. Who visited and during the reign of Chandragupta II? The foreign visitor. Yes, Fahin. Harsha's Ratnavalli, Nangananda, Priyadakshika, Huon Isaac, Siyuk. These are the literary sources of Gupta dynasty. Now let's see the foundation of the Gupta dynasty. Students, note it carefully. Sri Gupta is considered to be the founder of Gupta dynasty. Sri Gupta is considered to be the founder of the Gupta dynasty. And he is believed to have reigned over parts of present-day Bengal and Bihar. He was the first Gupta ruler to be featured on coins. He was succeeded by his son Ghatotkacha. Both are mentioned on Maharajas in inscription. Students, he was a founder of Sri Gupta dynasty and he was the first Gupta ruler to be featured on coins. He was succeeded by his son Ghatotkacha. Both are mentioned as Maharajas in inscription. Now let's see Chandragupta I. Chandragupta I married Kumara Devi of the famous and powerful Licchavi family, having gained the support of his family. Chandragupta could eliminate various small states in northern India and crown himself the monarch of larger kingdoms. Students, the founder of Gupta dynasty was Sri Gupta. The first important king of the Gupta dynasty was Chandragupta I. Keep in mind the first important king of the Gupta dynasty was Chandragupta I. And he married a Licchavi princess from Nepal, which strengthened this position. The Guptas were possibly Vaishyas, and hence marriage in a Kshatriya family gave them prestige. Chandragupta I can be regarded as a ruler of considerable importance because he started the Gupta era at AD 319 to 320, which marked the date of his accession. So later, inscriptions came to be dated in the Gupta era. The gold coins attributed to Chandragupta bear the images of Chandragupta, Kumaradevi and the legend Lichavya. Students, Licchavi was an old Gana Sangha and its territory lay between the Ganges and the Nepal Terai. Now let's see Chandragupta. Who was Samudragupta? Yes, he was a son of Chandragupta I. Students, Samudragupta, son of Chandragupta I, was the greatest ruler of the dynasty. The Prayog Prahasti, composed by Samudragupta's court poet Harisena, was engraved on Allahabad pillar. This Allahabad pillar inscription is the main source of information for Samudragupta's reign. Students, Samudragupta, called the Napoleon of India by Vincent Smith. He was the greatest of the rulers of the Gupta dynasty. The Gupta kingdom was enlarged enormously by the Chandragupta's one son and successor Samudragupta. And his court poet Harisena wrote a glowing account of the military exploits of this patron. Students, the Allahabad pillar inscription contains a long list of states, kings and tribes which are conquered and brought under various degrees of subjugation. Now let's see the consolidation of Gupta dynasty. Samudragupta was a great general, and when he became emperor, he carried on a vigorous campaign all over the country and even in the south. In the southern Pallava kingdom, the king who was defeated by Samudragupta was Vishnugopa. The king who was defeated by Samudragupta was called what? Yes, Vishnugopa. Samudragupta conquered 9 kingdoms in northern India. He reduced 12 rulers of the southern India to the status of feudatories and forced them to pay tribute. Students, the first one includes the 12 states of Dakshinapats with the names of their kings who were captured and then liberated and restated. He received homage from the rulers of East Bengal, Assam, Nepal, the eastern part of Punjab and various tribes of Rajasthan. Now let's see about Chandragupta Maurya. That is Chandragupta II. Chandragupta II was a son of Samudragupta. Students, keep in mind, Samudragupta was a son of Chandragupta I and Chandragupta II was a son of Samudragupta. Chandragupta II was a son of Samudragupta. He was also known as Vikramaditya. He conquered western Malwa and Gujarat by defeating the Saka rulers. He maintained friendly relationship with the rulers of southern India. Student, Samudragupta was succeeded by his son Chandragupta II Vikramaditya. But according to some scholars, the immediate successor of Samudragupta was Ramagupta, the elder brother of Chandragupta II. But there is little historical proof for this. The reign of Chandragupta II saw the high watermark of Gupta Empire. Chandragupta II was succeeded by his son Kumaragupta I, who built the famous Nalanda University. Students, he gave his daughter Prabhavati in marriage to the Vataka prince Rudrasena too. The political importance of this marriage lies in the fact that the Vatakas occupied a geographically strategic position in the Deccan. Now let's see about Kumaragupta. Kumaragupta's successor Skandagupta had to face a new threat in the form of the inventions of Huns. He defeated them and drove them away. But after 12 years, they came again and broke the back of the Gupta Empire. Bala Aditya, assumed to have been Narasimha Gupta I. Students, the Gupta period was classified into the legacy of the Gupta dynasty, society, economy, literature, art and architecture. Now let's see the Gupta polity. Students, the divine theory of kingship, the concept of that king is representative of God on earth and so is answerable only to God and not to anyone else. The Gupta dynasty kingship was practiced by the Gupta rulers. The Gupta Empire was divided into provinces known as Deshas or Bhuktis. They were administrated by the governors designated as Uparikas. Students, the Gupta kings wielded enormous power in political, administrative, military and judicial spheres. The Gupta king was assisted by a council of Mandris. Mandris is nothing but ministers. The council consisted of princes, high officials and feudatories. A large number of officials were employed by the Gupta rulers to carry on the day-to-day administration of the country. The extensive empire shows the important role of military organization. Seals and inscriptions mention military designations as Baladrikata and Mahabaladigita. Students, in every dynasty they were divided into provinces. Like this, in Gupta dynasty also they divided the provinces into Deshas or Bhuktis. Now let's see the society and economy, land and peasants. The contribution of the traders for the development of Gupta's economy was very impressive. There were two types of traders, namely Srishti and Sarvavaha. There were two trade systems are there. One is Srishti and the other one is Sarvavaha. The contribution of the traders for the development of Gupta economy was very impressive. See, the mining and metallurgy were the most flourishing industries during the Gupta period. As you already know that what is meant by mining and what is meant by metallurgy. The most important evidence of development in metallurgy was the Megharauli, iron pillar installed by the King Chandragupta in Delhi. The iron pillars was situated near Delhi. This monolithic iron pillar has lasted throughout the centuries without rusting. Now let's see the society of Gupta dynasty. Students, the society that adhered to 4 Varna system was patriarchal. According to laws of Manu, which was in force, women should be under the protection of their father, husband or eldest son. Polygamy was widely prevalent. Students, the kings and the feudatory lords often had more than one wife. Inscription referred to Kubarnaha and Drubavasmini as a queens of Chandragupta II. And also sati was practiced during the Gupta rule. There was revival of Vedic religion and Vedic rites. The religion of Gupta dynasty was Vedic religion and Vedic rites. We notice the beginning of image worship and the emergence of two sects, namely Vaishnavism and Saivism during the Gupta period. Students, Buddhism also continued to flourish through it splits into two sects, namely Hinayana and Mahayana. Now let's see the art and architecture of Gupta dynasty. The Guptas were the first to construct temples which evolved from the earlier tradition of rock-cut shrines. Adorned with towers and elaborate carvings, these temples were dedicated to all Hindu deities. Students, the most notable rock-cut caves are found at Ajanta and Ellora. It is situated in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh and Udayagiri in Odisha. The structural temples built during this period resemble the characteristic features of the Dravidian style. Students, the most important examples of the Gupta paintings are found on the fresco of the Ajanta caves and the Bhav caves in Gwalior. Now let's see the mathematics, astronomy and medicine. Students, the invention of zero. As you already know that the invention of zero is Aryabhatta and Varahamitra. See, the invention of zero and the consequent evaluation of the decimal system were the legacy of Guptas to the modern world. Aryabhatta, Varahamitra and Brahmagupta were foremost astronomers and the mathematicians of the time of Gupta dynasty. In his book Aryabhatta Surya Siddhanta explained the true causes of solar and lunar eclipses. He was the first Indian astronomer to declare that the earth revolves around its own axis. Students, note it carefully. He was the first Indian astronomer to declare that the earth revolves around its own axis. Dhanvantri was a famous scholar in the field of medicine. He was a specialist in Ayurveda. Chakra was a medical scientist. Sushruta was the first Indian to explain the process of surgery. They were in the period of Gupta dynasty. Students, note it carefully. Aryabhatta, Varahamitra was the foremost astronomers and also the Brahmagupta. Aryabhatta in his book Surya Siddhanta explained the true causes of solar and lunar eclipse. He was the first Indian astronomer also. And then Dhanvantri was a famous scholar in the field of medicine and the specialist in Ayurveda. And then Chakra was a medical scientist. And then Sushruta was the first Indian to explain the process of surgery. Now let's see the classification of land during the Gupta period. Kshetra. Kshetra can be classified to the cultivable land. Kila, wasteland. Aprahata, jungle or forest land. Vasti, habitable land. Gabata Saraha, pastoral land. Strasti is nothing but Strasti traders usually settled at the stranded place. But Sartavaha traders were caravan traders who carried their goods to different places. They were called as Sartavaha. Now let's see the important facts about Nalanda University. Nalanda University flourished under the patronage of the Gupta Empire in the 5th and 6th centuries and later under Emperor Harsha of Kannauj. At Nalanda, Buddhism was a main subject of study. Other subjects like yoga, Vedic literature and medicine were also taught. Huyen Tsang spent many years studying Buddhism in the university. 8 Mahapatashalas and 3 large libraries were situated on the campus. Nalanda was revamped and destroyed by Mamluks, that is in Turkish Muslims, under Bakhtiyar Kajli. Today it is UNESCO World Heritage Site. Nalanda University is considered as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now let's see about the Vardhana dynasty. The founder of the Vardhana or Pushyabhuti dynasty ruled from Taneshwar. Pushyabhuti served as a military general under the Guptas and rose to power after the fall of the Guptas. The founder of the Vardhana dynasty was ruled by Taneshwar. Raja Vardhana, the eldest son of Prabhakara Vardhana, ascended the throne after his father's death. Raja Vardhana's sister, Rajashri, husband, Raja of Kanuj, was killed by the Gauda ruler Sasanka of Bengal. This resulted in the younger brother Harshavardhana becoming the king of Taneshwar. The notables of Kanuj kingdom also invited Harsha to take its crown after becoming the ruler of the both Taneshwar and Kanuj. Harsha shifted his capital from Taneshwar to Kanuj. Now let's see the conquest of Harshavardhana. The most popular king of the Vardhana dynasty was Harshavardhana. Harsha ruled for 41 years. His feudatories included those of Jalandhar, Kashmir, Nepal and Vallabhi. He maintained a cordial relationship with the rulers of Iran and China. Now let's see the administration and art and architecture of Harshavardhana. See, the emperor was assisted by a council of ministers. As you already know that the emperor was assisted by a council of ministers. The prime minister occupied the most important position in the council of ministers. And you know what? Perfect law and order prevailed throughout the empire. Harsha paid great attention to discipline and strength of the army. Harsha built charitable institutions for the stay of the travelers and to care for the sick and the poor. The Nalanda University, a university and monastery combined, was said to have had 10,000 students and monks in residence when Yuan Sang visited the university. Harsha himself, a poet and a dramatist, gathered around him a best of poets and artists. Harsha's popular works are Ratnavalli, Nagananda and Priyadarshika. Now let's see the summary or key points of this lesson. Sri Gupta was a founder of Gupta dynasty. Chandragupta I, Samudragupta and Chandragupta II were the great kings of Gupta dynasty. Who are the great kings of Gupta dynasty? Yes, Chandragupta I, Samudragupta and Chandragupta II. Vishnugupta was the last recognized king of Gupta Empire. The divine rights theory of kingship was practiced by the Gupta rulers. Mining and metallurgy were the most flourishing industries during the Gupta period. The society that adhered to four Varna system was patriarchal. There was a revival of Vedic religion and Vedic rites. The Guptas were the first to construct temples which evolved from the earlier tradition of rock-cut shrines. Aryabhatta, Varahimira and Brahmagupta were the foremost astronomers and mathematicians of the time. Harsha was a prominent ruler of the Vardhana dynasty and was elevated to the position of an empire. Harsha was a great artist and dramatist and contributed to the development of literature and art. Yuan Sang visited Nalanda and wrote his useful travel accounts which help us understand the condition of India during Harsha's reign. Harsha, through a strong follower of Buddhism, also promoted Vedic religion. Students, these are the important points in Gupta dynasty and Vardhana dynasty. Now let's see history for South Indian kingdoms. South Indian kingdom, the Pallavas. In this lesson, today we are going to see the southern Indian states that emerged after the fall of the Mauryan Empire, and also to understand the contribution to society and culture with reference to literature, art and architecture, and also about the Mahabalipuram Shore Temple, Ellora monuments and Elephanta Cave temples. Now let's see the South Indian kingdoms. Students, by the early 7th century, synchronizing with the Harsha's reign in the north, the far south had come under the control of the Pallava kings of Kanchipuram. The Pallava kings ruled around the prosperous agrarian settlement, an important trade center of Kanchipuram on the southeast coast of India. Kanchipuram was well known to Chinese and Roman merchants. From the flourishing trade center of Kanchipuram, the later Pallavas extend the sovereignty over the Tamil-speaking regions during the 7th and 8th centuries. Kanchipuram was well known to Chinese and Roman merchants. Students, Tondai Mandalam, a large political region comprising northern parts of the Tamil Nadu and adjoining Andhra districts. Now let's see the sources of Pallava dynasty. Inscription: Mandagapattu cave, eye-hole inscription of Pulikezhin II. Copper plates, Kasakudi plates. Literature: Mattavilasa Prahasana, Avanti Sundarakatha, Kalingathu Bharani, Periya Puranam, Nandi Kalambagam. And the foreign notices were accounts of Chinese traveller Huan Isang. Now let's see the Pallava genealogy, prominent kings. There were early Pallava rulers who were feudatories of Satavahanas. Simha Vishnu, a son of Simhavarman II. A strong Pallava kingdom after destroying the Kalabras, and he defeated many kings in the south including the Cholas and the Pandyas. His able son was Mahendravarman II. Mahendravarman was defeated and succeeded by his son Narasimhavarman I. The other prominent Pallava rulers were Narasimhavarman II or Rajasimha and Nandivarman II. The last Pallava ruler was Aparijita. Students, Mahendravarma I was contributed to the greatness of the Pallava kingdom. Mahendravarman contributed to the greatness of the Pallava kingdom, and the Mahendravarman I was a follower of Jainism in the early part of the rule, and he was converted to Saivism by the Saivite saint Appar, that is Tirunavukarasar. He was a great patron of art and architecture. Now let's see the Pallavas' contribution to architecture. Students, Pallava period is known for architecture splendor. The shore temples and various other temples carved during the granite monolithics and the Varaha cave. In 1984, Mahabalipuram was added to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Students, it was a great age of temple building. The Pallavas introduced the art of excavating temples from the rock. In fact, the Dravidian style of temple architecture began with the Pallava rule. Students, Mahendravarma I introduced the rock-cut temples. This style of Pallava temples are seen at the places like Mandagapattu, Mahendravadi, Mamandur, Dalvanur, Tiruchirappalli, Vallam, Siyamangalam and Tirukkalukundram. Now let's see the classification of Pallava architecture. Students, Pallava architecture can be classified as rock-cut temples. were built by Mahendravarman style. Monolithic rathas and sculptural mandabas in the style of Mamallan style. Structural temples, Rajasimhan style and Nandivarman style. Let's see one by one. Mahendra style. The cave temple, here called Mahendra Vishnu Riham in its inscription, is one of the few Vaishnavite cave temples of King Mahendra. It has been excavated almost at ground level into a large freestanding boulder. And the next one is Northern Cave Temple. The Rock-cut temple, here facing east, has been carved on the once buried eastern side of a low outcrop. There is no Pallava inscription in the cave, but it has a strong resemblance to the larger one at Narasamangalam and has many archaic features of the Pallavas. And this rock-cut temple consists of a front mandapa with the 2 rows of pillars, which were as a usual massive square at the base and top. And then larger unfinished cave temple Narasamangalam Mamandur. Unlike the first two, the third cave from the north is excavated toward the southern end of a taller rock to the south. This cave temple definitely attributable to the king Mahendra. This is the northernmost cave temple facing the east, is a simple heavy square and octagonal sections. Smaller unfinished cave temple Narasamangalam. Rudravilasaram cave temple Narasamangalam Mamandur. Now let's see Mamala style. The 5 rathas, popularly called Panchapandava rathas, signify 5 different styles of temple architecture. Each ratha has been carved out a single rock, so they are called monolithic. Students, the popular mandapams, pillared pavilions they built are Mahishashumardini Mandapam, Tirumurti Mandapam and Varaha Mandapam. The most important among the Mamalla style of architecture is the open art gallery. Several miniature sculptures such as the figure of lice-picking monkey, elephants of huge size and figure of the aesthetic cat have been sculpted beautifully on the wall of a huge rock. The Great Penance panel is considered to be the world's largest open-air ball relief. Now let's see Rajasimha style. Narasimha Varma II, also known as Rajasimha, constructed structural temples using stone blocks. The best example for the structural temple is Kailasanatha temple at Kanchipuram. Students, this temple was built by using sandstones. Students, Kailasanatha temple is also called as Rajasimheshwaram. Now let's see the Nandivarma style. The last stage of the Pallava architecture is also represented by structural temples built by the later Pallavas. The best example is Vaikunta Perumal temple at Kanchipuram. Now let's see the society and culture of Pallava dynasty. The Pallavas supported Jainism, Buddhism and the Vedic faith. They were great patrons of music, painting and literature. Some of the Pallava kings patronized the Alvas and Nayanmas. These exponents of Bhakti cult preached a new form of Vaishnavism. Students, the Pallava society was based on Aryan culture. Brahmins were greatly patronized by the kings and they received land and villages. This was called Brahmadeya. The Pallava kings were orthodox Hindus and worshipped Shiva and Vishnu. They were tolerant of Buddhism and Jainism too, although both these faiths lost their relevance and popularity. Students, and you know what? Kanchipuram was a great center of learning. The University of Kanchi played a great part in the propagation of Aryan culture in the south. Now let's see the education and literature of Pallava dynasty. The treatise on Dakshin Chitram, paintings of South India, was compiled during the reign of Mahendravarma I. The great Sanskrit scholar Dandin lived in the court of Narasimhavarma I, and Dandin composed Dashakumara Sarita. Students, the Pallavas were great patrons of learning. The capital, Kanchi, was an ancient center of learning. And also the founder of the Kadamba dynasty studies Vedas at Kanchi. Students, music and dance are also developed during this period. Dharmapala, who later became the head of the Nalanda University, belonged to Kanchi. And the Nayanmas and Alvas composed religious hymns in Tamil. The Devaram composed by Nayanmas and the Nalayira Divya Prabandham composed by Alvas represent the religious literature of the Pallava period. Students, the Pallavas were the great patron of learning and the capital Kanchi was an ancient center of learning. And also the Tamil literature had also flourished during the Pallava rule. Students, now only we discussed the Devaram was composed by Nayanmas and the Nalayira Divya Prabandham composed by Alvas, which was still chanted by devout people. Now let's see the Pallava art and architecture. The Pallava kings had also patronized fine arts. The music inscription in Kudumiyanmalai and Thirumayam temples shows Pallavas' interest in music. The famous musician Rudracharya lived during Mahendravarma I. The sculptures of this period depict many images in dancing postures. Students, the Pallava art and architecture represent an early stage of Dravidian art and architecture. And the Kailasanatha temple at Kanchipuram, the Shore temples and the Pancharathas of Mahabalipuram, Akshara was the greatest sculpture of this time. Okay, now let's see about the Chalukyas. The Chalukyas ruled larger parts of the west and center of South India, consisting of Maratha country with Vatapi, that is Badami, as their capital. There were three distinct but closely related and independent Chalukya dynasties. There were Chalukyas of Badami, Chalukyas of Vengi, Eastern Chalukyas, and Chalukyas of Kalyani, that is in Western Chalukyas. Now let's see the sources of Chalukya dynasty. The inscriptions were Badami cave inscription of Mangalesha, Kanchi Kailasanatha temple inscription, Patadakkal Virupaksha temple inscription, Aihole inscription of Pulikezhin I. And the foreign notices were accounts of Chinese traveller Hugin Isang. And then the facts about Aihole inscription. Students, it is found at Megadi temple in Aihole. It is written in Sanskrit by Ravi Kriti, a court poet of Chalukya king Pulikezhin II. It makes a mention of the defeat of Ashavardhana by Pulikezhin II. Now let's see the Chalukyas of Vatapi. Students, Pulikezhin I, a petty chieftain of Pattadakkal in the Bijapur district, took and fortified the hill fort of Vatapi around 543 AD. His son Kirtivarman I brought the Konkan coast under Chalukya control. Pulikezhin II emerged as the most powerful ruler of the Chalukya dynasty. Students, keep in mind, Pulikezhin II emerged as the most powerful ruler of the Chalukya dynasty. Pulikezhin I, petty chieftain of Patadakkal in the Bijapur district. The Western Chalukyas of Kalyani. They were the descendants of Badami Chalukyas ruled from Kalyani, modern day Basava Kalyan. In 973, Tailapa II, a feudatory of the Rakshakutta, ruling from Bijapur region. For over a century, the two empires of southern India, the Western Chalukyas and the Chola dynasty of Tanjavur, fought many fierce battles to control the fertile region of Vengai. Students, in the late 11th century, vast areas between the Narmada river in the north and Kaveri river in the south came under Chalukya control. Now let's see the art and architecture of the Chalukya dynasty. As supporters of both Saivism and Vaishnavism, the Chalukyas contributed richly to the art and architecture. He followed a new style of architecture known as Vesara, was developed during the Chalukya dynasty. And they perfected the art of stone building without mortar. They used soft sandstones in construction. And they built a number of rock-cut cave temples and structural temples dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. The important stone temples are the Vishnu temples at Badami and Aihole and the Virupaksha or Siva temple at Patadakkal in the Bijapur district in present-day Karnataka. And there the cave temples are found at Ajanta, Ellora and Nasik. The cave temples at Badami contain fine sculptures of Vishnu residing the Sesha, Nag, Varaha and the boar. Rashtrakuta dynasty. The Rashtrakuta ruled not only the Deccan but parts of the far south and the Ganges plain. They ruled under 8th and 10th century. They were of Kannada origin and the mother tongue was Kannada. He was an official high rank under the Chalukyas of Badami. Now let's see the Rashtrakuta kings. The greatest king of the Rashtrakuta dynasty was Amogha Varsha. He built a new capital at Manyaketa, now Malkad in Karnataka. Students, the greatest king of the Rashtrakuta dynasty was Amogha Varsha. The Krishna III was the last able ruler of Rashtrakuta dynasty, and the Krishna III consisted with the other ruling dynasties of North India for the control of Kanuj. And after his death, the Rashtrakuta power declined. Govinda III was the last ruler to hold the empire intact. Literature. Their mother tongue was Kannada, so the Kannada language became more prominent during the Rashtrakutas dynasty. And he was the first poetic work in Kannada language. Court poets produced eminent works in Kannada because their mother tongue is Kannada. Students, the life of Rishabhavida, the first Jain Tirthangara, is depicted in Adipurna. And it is identified with Arjuna, epic hero of Mahabharata. And also the art and architecture were developed during the Rashtrakutas dynasty. They made significant contribution to Indian art and architecture that can be found at Ellora and Elephanta. And also the Kailasanatha temple, Ellora near Aurangabad, Maharashtra. Kailasanatha temple was one of the 30 temples carved out of the hill at Ellora. It was built during the reign of Krishna I, but Krishna III was under the contested with other ruling dynasties. Krishna III was the last able ruler of Rashtrakuta dynasty, but the Kailasanatha temple was built during the reign of Krishna I. The temple covers an area of over 60,000 square feet and the height is 90 feet. This temple has resemblance to the shore temple at Mahabalipuram. The Kailasanatha temple portrays typical Dravidian features. And then the temples of Patadakkal. Rashtrakutas built temples in the complex of Patadakkal. The Jain Narayana temple and the Kasi Vishweshwara temple were built by Rashtrakutas. And also originally known as Sri Puri, called Garapuri by the local people. Elephanta is an island near Mumbai. The Portuguese named it as Elephanta after seeing the huge image of an elephant and faced Shiva icon in an illustrative of the sculptural beauty portrayed in the cave temple of Elephanta. Students, now let's see the today's activity portion. Who was Toramana and who built the Kailasanatha temple at Ellora?